Follow me to the sunshine streets, open your ears and brains. A recipe of fresh and bloody treats, right here's where you jump the trains. The clock stops here, so grab a beer, throw your sensibilities away. We ain't walking, we're talking to the north, east, west, and south. This broadcast is fast like the dead we will last. We're running on rotten mouths. We're talking to the north, east, west, and south. This rotten cast is fast like the dead we will last. We're running on rotten mouths. Come on, we're running on rotten mouths. We're running on rotten mouths.
All right, welcome back to This Rotten Podcast. I'm Jacy Morris, a horror writer who sometimes dabbles in something called Bizarro. And you are?
The janitor. I clean up if anything gets dirty during the cast.
What are you talking about?
I'm Nick.
This is Nick, and
Scott liked it.
Scott likes a lot of things. Scott likes Thomas Jane as the Punisher, but okay.
That's true. He did say that.
And on the old keyboard and mouse is Scott, our fantastic producer with questionable taste. And here we go. This is our Bizarro episode. I feel like I already stepped off into Bizarro land with my Bizarro co-host, just talking about how he's a janitor for some reason. I'm not quite sure.
I said the janitor. It's different.
The janitor, the one that cleans. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this is our Bizarro episode. And for those that don't know what we're talking about, it's not like back in the 80s cartoons where you had Bizarro Superman and his face looked like a Cybertruck. And you remember what I'm talking about?
I do.
Remember those cartoons? Bizarro Superman shows up and he's just got lines like a Cybertruck. Yeah. And it's not that. So Bizarro is sort of a fiction movement. It's kind of came out of absurdism. And just taking things to the max, right? Pushing boundaries. And it's usually a combination of horror, satire, comedy, gross out stuff. And it makes a nice pastiche of what the heck am I reading? And that's why it's called Bizarro. It's had other names throughout the years, but I think Bizarro is the one that people have kind of settled on. And the reason I'm bringing it up today is because I went to my first convention. Because I'm kind of a shut-in. Like I'll work all day. I'll just sit there and work and be like, well, what happened to my day? It's gone. So I actually went out and met other humans in the real world at a convention. It was my first one. And I know you've been to conventions before. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of curious, like what your convention was like. The things that you go to. What are the things you go to and what's it like and what do you got? Give me the whole rundown.
So I really like playing characters. I've always, since, I was a little tyke. And the conventions are kind of a way where you can go and just kind of like look however you want and explore some of these characters. Mine over the past few years have kind of just been pretty much the same one. I go as Wolverine because it's fun to, take pictures of the people, and that one draws the most attention. But it's also cool to see some of these people that are actually, very accomplished, renowned artists and people that have created characters and stories. And it's that whole atmosphere for me is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the last one you went to?
The last one was actually just a few days ago.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it?
The Portland Fan Con.
Why didn't you invite me?
I did. You didn't get the letters?
The letters in the mail?
Yeah, because society is not society without letters. You and I might be the only two people that think that left on the earth, but
yeah.
So it must have been the mailman that screwed it up. The
All right,
postman.
so FanCon. Oh, is that what that was?
You got that,
Christmas
right?
card from episode.
Oh, I should have mentioned that was.
Whatever. Okay, I didn't know. I thought it was
right.
All right. So FanCon, you're going there and you're checking out all these fans. You got oscillators. You got the engine fans.
You son of a bitch.
Is it? It's not that type of fans.
You raisin. I swear to God.
Raisin.
I don't know what that means.
Is that a racist term against indigenous people?
Oh God, I hope not.
Because you leave our bodies in the sun and it just wrinkles. You're sick, dude.
No.
You're sick. All right. So FanCon. What's FanCon?
FanCon. It's Comic-Con. It's basically the same thing. But only at FanCon there's more kiosks with celebrities. And for instance, Christopher Lloyd was there at this one, and one of the girls in my group that was there, Doc Brown. She saw that he was leaving his post for the day, and he's almost 90 now. So he's older kind of getting up, but he's still got some energy. And
is he tall? I always thought he was tall, but I could be wrong.
He looked about 6'1".
And he's probably shrunk a little bit. So he was probably like 6'2".
He was, let's just say he was in an aggressive, leaned over stance.
Okay.
So he's leaving. He's shaking hands, and she just yells, "Christopher, Christopher!" And he looks, and he just goes, and blows her a kiss, and walks over, and they talked a little bit, and then he bounced. And I was like, dude, that was rad.
Yeah.
That he was just engaged with a super fan, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And she was smitten the rest of the day. My favorite con experience, however, was, again, Wolverine and Katie Sackhoff.
You're dressed as Wolverine. Are you like bland Hugh Jackman Wolverine, like in just like a jean jacket?
I switch.
You switch. You do wear the jean jacket sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I'm like more traditional tough guy Carhartt Canadian. Don't just leave me alone. I'm in a dive bar.
Okay.
Hugh Jackman. So, and I've done
with a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a cigar with you?
I usually do. Yeah.
Like an unlit one, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I have done like a Days of Future Past, so like 70s Wolverine.
Nice.
With like the bone claws instead of the metal ones. Leather jacket. Just kind of like.
And you have those surgically implanted in your hands. Can you bring them out now?
No, because I can act angry, but I have to actually be actually furious for them to come out. That's the only problem. Is that people always ask them to come out, but they have to really like push me, And then the one the traditional one, with the tank top and the dog tags and the that one I do a lot too.
Okay. All right. So you're just like which one during this cool story you're gonna tell?
My favorite one? Yeah. This one was the traditional like tank top jeans, just like full blown like action Wolverine. And Katie Sackhoff, who we both went to school with, Battlestar Galactica, all that stuff. She was doing a Q&A, and there was a conference room filled with Starbuck was her character in Battlestar Galactica, just filled with super Starbuck fans. And she's up there, she's giving people a rundown, telling us what she'd been doing. Basically, she was just chilling and being like, yeah, there's like vodka in my coffee, so don't mind my red cheeks. And was just like laughing and joking around about everything. And then the host basically running the whole thing was like, hey, it's time for the Q&A. And everybody just ran up to the, let's have a single file line. They ran up to the side.
Like the squeak of sneakers? Was it like a movie? It was like squeak, 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 squeak.
Pretty, yeah.
Ran over there?
It was, yeah. Quintessential, movie like that. Just everybody going up there. So here I am in this line of super fans, right? And I'm just up there because I want to trip her out. Because, this is the person that used to like sit in science class and be like, I'm going to be a star someday. And we'd be all like, hell yeah. And then I also like wore her dirty soccer socks for a game for good luck. Because I played football and she was a really good soccer player. And I think we won that game. And I had like 3 touchdowns. So thanks, Katie. But so I get up in line and everybody's just asking, hey, when Starbuck was working out in the mess hall and, just all these like super fan questions. I get up there and she's kind of paused. She goes, oh my God. And just kind of like looks down and I go, hey. And I turn to the crowd and I turn to her and I go, I remember when she used to talk about she was going to be famous. And look at her now. Bravo, Katie. Good shit. And that was like all I did. And she was like, yeah, fuck yeah, man. And that was it. But it was really rad for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Other guests you've met at your cons that you're like, yeah, that was cool. Who else have you met?
All right. So this was not a Wolverine one. This was when I went as Tony Stark. And our esteemed producer, Scott, and I made, I mean, it was his design, his idea. There was a Coors Light belt buckle. Just a shitty, disc-shaped metal, like actual, like, I think it was cast iron. I mean, it was a kind of a solid buckle. And he goes, dude, we can make an arc reactor out of that. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Hooked up a battery pack, a light cover, the whole nine, and cut a hole out of a tank top and had the battery pack on my hip. So, I mean, it looked like a sick-ass arc reactor. So I'm walking around as Tony Stark. I walk by, one of these booths. It's Adam West, the original Batman.
The original Batman.
Yeah. And I kind of walked by him a couple times. We looked like, oh, it's right on, Adam West. And he goes, you there, son, you. And I turn and I notice he's pointing at me. And he goes, oh, I could see right through you. Why don't you come over here for a second, young man? And I walk over there. And I mean, I'm standing there talking to Adam West for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because most of these people, they're very strict. They have handlers and they're like, they'll screen people like, well, not like screen them like for danger, but like just like, hey, did you
like
pay?
usher you off or
It's
like
like one at a time. You got to pay the fee for the picture. Get a quick
stop
autograph.
drooling, kid. It's gross.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, hey, geek, get the fuck out of here. But he was like, you there, you son, and it was just the coolest thing. Scott was with me actually at that one.
Did he talk to Scott?
I think so. I mean, we were, Scott like kind of like noticed what was going on and came and was like, holy shit. He's next just like shooting the shit with Adam West because I could see right through you, young man. And he just loved the arc reactor.
Did Burt Young show up?
No. It's too bad, right?
Yeah. You got half a cool story.
So that was actually, maybe that one was it's hard to pick between those two for different reasons, but.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Kato Kalin, I sang Sweet Child of Mine because he was doing a karaoke booth. And he saw me over. He goes, Wolverine, holy shit, hey, everybody, it's Wolverine. Why don't you come up and sing a song? And Kato Kalin and I think he harmonized with me a little bit.
Okay.
Sang Sweet Child of Mine.
Oh yeah, I know that song. Let's see. What do you get out of that con experience? Like like you go to it and you're like, what are you feeling? What do you like about it?
Some of the people are true craftsmen when it comes to some of the people. Did that just happen? Are we good the whole time? Did I lose all that? Yeah, that just happened. The are true craftsmen with their outfits. I mean, you're talking. There was a guy in a Warcraft looking like mechanized suit. I mean, we're talking 7-8 feet tall with moving arms. And not to mention some of these like women that show up and they actually look like these gorgeous model like comic book characters. I saw a Galactus that actually looked like him from the comics. I mean, just so the costumes alone are amazing. And then it's fun to get these you just getting outside of yourself and just being like, yeah, I'm just this like kind of weird character for today. And everybody just wants to take these funny and weird pictures with each other and just kind of live in a fantasy world for a day. That's really fun. And it also is fun to meet up with some of these like illustrators if you knew them from back in the day. Like there's Randy Feldman, I believe is his name. He's an illustrator from the original, like some of the really good 90s Spider-Man comics. And he's been there and I've been there so many times and he recognizes us now. He was like, hey, Randy, what's up? And he's a musician in town. He lives in Portland.
Yeah.
And he's a very well-known artist in the comic world. And so he's just a really cool guy. And so, yeah, it's fun to do like photo collaborations, but also have conversations with these accomplished, artists. It's a whole experience. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I did my first con mine is like totally different than yours though.
Mhm.
So the one I did was called Bizarro Con.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I'm talking about Bizarro stuff. So, a writers convention is a little different than like a fan convention.
Yeah, I bet.
So I'd never done one before. I don't know why I even thought to go. I think I was gonna like go and try and like promote books and make connections and sell things, but I don't know. I went on this thing anyways. And it was in Astoria, which is nice because we got a nice hotel room there.
Cool.
Everything's walkable in Astoria. So it was like this event's over here, this event's over there.
Yeah.
And we're just walking all over. There's lots of breweries there, which is nice. But yeah, I signed up at the last minute and I went to go and sign up and it's like, yo, we closed this. You can't sign up for it anymore. And I was like, because I was waiting for a check to come through on a short story I sold. And like it finally came through. And by the time I did it, it was like 4 or 5 days before the convention.
Of course, yeah.
So I was like, oh, that sucks. So I just emailed the people. And I was like, I explained my situation. And they were like, cool, no, it's fine. We just come on in. We got you. And so we rolled down there. Now, I'm a pretty anxious person. Like, do you think of me as anxious? I mean, I don't know that I put it out there, but I am.
Yeah, I mean, you hide it
ways.
well. I wouldn't say I think you're anxious to get things done. I think you want things to go a certain way, and if it's not efficient, it really bothers you.
Yeah, I mean, I
that
go
can
with
make
that.
you just
Like,
kinda
and
like,
that's the thing about going to one of these things is, like, I have my routines.
Yeah.
That keep me running. They
Yeah.
keep me going, keep me productive, and doing all my stuff. And when they get messed up, I get a little bit out of whack, and like, I'm not even aware like time or how long things are taking or anything like that. I'm just all up in
Or
my
how
head.
much damage you're doing to that person currently. What?
No, not necessarily that.
Oh.
So I signed up for it and we went to it and I was like, yo, I brought Jen along with me because I was like, what if I go there and I'm just like a total wreck? Because I don't know. I've never interacted with other writers for the most part. I've done a couple events where I'm like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
But it's not like you're in these workshops and classes for a whole day. And I'm like, what if I'm a total disaster? Or what if I hate everyone? Which
that's more likely.
Yeah, I mean that's it can go that way sometimes. I just don't like that many people on a personal level. So the idea of going to a place and spending a whole weekend with just those people and finding out like I can't stand these people, like that's kind of a nightmare to me because then I just be like stuck there. So I brought Jen along and I invited another couple of friends down into Astoria. So it which turned out to be kind of a mistake because I actually had a really great time. And then I was like, oh, I'm hanging out here having a good time. And now I got to run over here and meet my friends for dinner and kind of leave this thing. So
you were like, damn, it's kind of bummer. I got to leave.
I mean, but you know, I play it safe. I'm gonna cover all my bases, right?
Sure.
So I'm not just gonna like roll up in a place like it'll be fine. I'll do great. I'm never gonna be that person. I'm gonna be like, here's my backup plan. Here's my second backup.
What's
plan.
that like?
What do you mean?
To show up somewhere and not think you're going to be great.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. It's hard to relate to.
There's just lots of doubt in there. Lots of doubt.
Oh.
So anyways, I got there. I signed in at a tap room, which was delicious. I think it was called Bridge and Tunnel, which was my favorite one there. This is the first one off the bat. Lots of good things on tap. Fridges full of a great selection.
Okay.
Where you know they'll pop the top for you and you're good to go. $1 corkage fee, which
why
the corkage fee?
Just
right?
charge the extra buck.
Yeah,
for the thing.
Just put the price on there. Don't call it a corkage fee at all.
You don't need an extra step because in Oregon you have to. The bar owner has to. Anyways, yeah.
But lovely place. I had a great time. I signed in. I got my little badge, which I was wearing around like a total nerd. Nice. For the whole weekend, you know, you get that badge and you just forget to take it off.
Sure.
And you like walk into like a gas station. They're like, oh, what's that? And it says Bizarro Con on there. And everyone's like, what is that?
It says Bizarro Con. I hate gas station workers. And they're like, what the fuck, dude?
That would be a great badge if it just tells whoever you're across that you hate them. Like it just changes.
Yeah. It's a good idea, actually. Wow.
So yeah, I met a lot of writers there, which I knew. I only knew one person there, Danger Slater, who I'd met in Portland. Um, I met him like at a book sale one time. He was selling books like on the sidewalk over in Beaverton, and I was like, oh, cool. And he was there with another press guy, so I at least knew someone there. And I was like, I was doing that thing where you're like, you try and play it cool, where you're like, we're kind of an acquaintance, but I'm not gonna like glob onto this guy and be like, oh, hey, show me around, like introduce me to all the people. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
you do that thing, hey,
Hey, man.
yeah,
I'm like cool
and you try and be cool
because look what I'm doing.
yeah, and that's it.
Like cool people do this. Uncool people would be like, bro, can I like sit in your pocket for the rest of the day?
Yeah,
Yeah, I got you.
I'm not gonna be that guy. So I was the other way. But I met a lot of great people. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I think I'd like to do more. And definitely, I definitely heard a lot of interesting titles from Bizarro books.
I bet.
Do
you have some in mind?
I've got some. I had Scott pull some up on the screen. Would you like to read some of those titles for me?
Yeah. I mean, the first one alone. Help! A bear is eating me.
That's going to get your attention, right?
It is.
That's a great title.
Shatner Quake?
Shatner Quake. This is by Jeff Brick. I did a workshop with him
Cool.
in Astoria, and I just want to talk about this workshop because, like,
I love these already.
I went into this workshop, right? And so here's how it works: you come in, you do a pitch. Do you know what pitch is?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like short blurb, tagline, sell me your book.
Yeah.
And we're in a group with all these other Bizarro writers, and I signed up for it. I was like, cool, I'll do that. That sounds fun. And then we just gave each other a hard time and feedback about it.
Sure.
What was mine? Mine called was Billionaire. Oh, Billionaire Bastard Hunting Club was my pitch.
Nice.
And it's basically about this millionaire who's part of this hunting club where they try and take out billionaires. And all of a sudden his business hits it big.
So a needed business for now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And his business hits it big, and all of a sudden he's a billionaire, and he's like, oh no, now all my friends are gonna have to come and try and kill me. So that was the pitch.
That's cool. Was there a character in the book that was like, you're just jealous of billionaires?
No. I haven't written the book. It was the pitch. It's just the idea for
pitch.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you don't go that deep. It's literally just what's the premise, give me a tagline, and that stuff. Jeff Burke was leading that whole thing. He hated my idea. He was like, I've seen it done before. Jeff's like this punk rock dude who wrote Shatner Quake.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've seen it done before. And I was like, yeah, well, I could not like I do it,
Yeah.
But he didn't know me. So let's go on with more titles here.
The Cannibals of Candyland. Okay.
Cannibals of Candyland. That's great. That's Carlton Mellick III.
Also,
he's huge in the Bizarro world. He's written like 100 books.
Nice.
I interrupted an interview he was doing with someone who was doing a podcast to ask if they could watch my beer.
Nice. Good form.
And I didn't pick up on it because they had like, a little microphone and like a speaker in her ear. And I was like, hey, I just asked you if you could watch my beer. And they're like, she's like, I was like, oh, okay. It took me like 30 seconds to figure it out. But anyways, I interrupted.
I have a beer allergy. It makes me deaf. Is that what she was trying to say?
Yeah. Another title here. Go ahead and read that for me, Nick.
Oh, Witch Piss by Sam Pink.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. It sounds intriguing.
It does. And it's not witch piss like someone's choosing which piss. It's witch piss, like piss.
Yeah, nice. What else do we got? Just pick any of those out there.
God, it's so hard to. These are Beer Run of the Dead. Actually, sounds fun.
I like that one. I had a story idea like that for a while. It was about a couple of. I never wrote it. It was called Stage Drunk, and it's about a couple.
I like that.
It's about a couple of moonshiners who are like a virus gets loose and it starts turning people crazy and nuts, and the only way to defeat the virus is to stay drunk.
That's amazing.
And like everyone's coming to their like little property. I didn't write it because it's like I can write better stuff than that. But I think it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm not. It doesn't have any real deeper meaning to me, which is why I never wrote.
Maybe you should write a punk song named "Stay Drunk," and it's that story, but it's over in like a minute and 20 seconds.
Maybe, I don't know. There we go. We got some good ones here.
Rico Slade will fucking kill you.
Isn't that a great title?
I like it. Yeah.
So as you can see, these
like most of
titles
these.
are like, the covers are amazing. The titles are amazing. Bizarro. It may seem like schlock,
Okay.
and some of it is, but there's also a lot of, meaning in there. Like people are trying to say things about the world. They're trying to point out the ridiculousness of our world
Scott and our world.
and of Scott.
Haunted Vagina. I may or may not have any experience with that.
Yeah. I think the favorite title I heard, I was talking to a guy in Astoria and I was like, oh, you got a book out? He's like, yeah. And I was like, what's the name of it? And he goes, The Traveling Dildo Salesman. It's just like the title alone, right? I mean, the title.
The title alone.
Half a Bizarro book is just coming up with a cool title.
Did you ask him if that's maybe a little bit too on the tip? I mean, on the nose.
I did not. I had a lot of conversations I got into.
That's. Did you read it though?
No, I haven't read it yet.
Okay.
I'm. There's all these writers out there who are like, read, and I might get through like 30 books a year because I'm so busy writing.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like, yeah, I read like 100 books. I'm like, I don't got time for that. I'm writing.
Jesus. Yeah. You're like working. Yeah.
Yeah. Scott brought up another favorite title of mine. Well, not a favorite title, but it certainly gets the attention.
Should I read this one?
Oh yeah, you're reading that. I don't need people recording me saying it.
This is by another Melek, the third book, The Baby Jesus Butt Plug, a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale.
Wow.
Go ahead and you want to read that
yeah, let's
synopsis?
Read
Let's sell some of
synopsis.
Carlton's books. He seems like a nice guy.
All right. This is
Nick has the good ad voice, so
check out The Baby Jesus Butt Plug by Carlton Melek III. Step into a dark and absurd world where human beings are slaves to corporations. People are photocopied instead of born, and the baby Jesus is a very popular anal probe.
Very good. Would you read that?
I would read it.
Read that?
I'd read it today.
Right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's Bizarro stuff. So I know it's quite hard to explain what it is. It's kind of like one of those things. What are those things where you're like, well, you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Like what else can you think of that's like that? There's other things out there where you're like, you'll know it when you see it.
Oh man.
Like it's just so hard to explain what it is.
That's a tough question. I mean, that's such a universally experienced thing, but it's hard to like come up with a perfect example of it right now.
Yeah. Well, Bizarro is basically the genre of you'll know it when you see it.
Okay.
Such as this title.
Ass Goblins of Auschwitz.
By Cameron Pierce.
Okay.
He's the guy that got me into the Bizarro Con after their registration had closed. Nice guy. I am always concerned at how much like Nazi stuff there is in the Bizarro stuff. But it's not like it's never pro-Nazi. It's like we don't like Nazis.
That's what
they're very focused on like.
Dude,
like,
can I read
writing
this
about
synopsis?
You want to read this synopsis?
Yeah,
Go
I think
for it.
it's Monty Python meets Elon Musk. I mean, Nazi exploration in a surreal nightmare as he can only be imagined by Bizarro author Cameron Pierce. In a land where black snow falls in the shape of swastikas, there exists a nightmarish prison camp known as Auschwitz. It is run by Scott. God damn it!
Nick has to go through the more button.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's long.
Scott, God bless you for cutting that. And then yada yada yada. They must overcome toilet toads, cock rats, and ass dolls.
You've been there.
Wow, yeah, Lord knows I have. And the surgical experiments that they are slowly mutating them into goblin child hybrids. Wow. Forget everything you know about Auschwitz. You're about to be shit slaughtered.
So yeah, I mean, that description's fantastic, right?
That's good.
Like, it seems like some people just threw a bunch of weird stuff in a hat and pulled it out and were like, check this stuff out I made.
Yeah.
But these Bizarro writers are some of the most creative minds I've encountered. And they're subversive, they push the envelope, and they're not for everyone.
Sure.
Right? A lot of people would be turned off by the title alone. The people that are willing to take the chance are going to find some pretty amazing stuff out there. right? Maybe those titles are like shocking to you, maybe they're weird, but that's part of pushing the envelope. That's part of writing and being an artist.
Yeah.
Um, is it all, classy? No, but that's kind of how writing goes, right? If we just did what everyone found acceptable, where would we be?
It'd be boring for one thing.
For sure.
And like you said, where's the challenge in that?
Mm-hmm. I agree. So for those that don't know, I don't write all the time in Bizarro. I would consider One Night Stand Bizarro, right? When I go, this is the tale of a comedian traveling around a post-apocalyptic world with his talking doll head,
Yeah.
trying to make a living by doing stand-up comedy. Like that's Bizarro.
Yeah.
Like it's just, there's so much there. And it's honestly not even like 1/10 of the weird stuff I throw at you in there.
No.
Right. There's so much weird stuff that I've thrown in on top of that. I just like to give people the gist and say, like, you into it or not?
Yeah.
I don't like Cameron's like description there is amazing. I don't need to go that deep. I'm like 2-3 sentences tops and I'm out.
Yeah.
Because I'm not there for the shock. I think the premise stands on its own. But so One Night Stand, that series is Bizarro. That's 6 books now. And then the other one I had was called The Taxidermied Man, which I'm going to do a quick reading of in a second here. But before we do that, do you have any questions about Bizarro? Anything that you're wondering?
How do authors that are strictly non-Bizarro, I don't know if you could really like pick and choose or decipher.
So people
who
that aren't
be.
in the Bizarro, they don't write in Bizarro writing.
Yeah.
How can they what?
Is there like a generalized opinion from authors? Like, are there anti-Bizarro authors that you know of? Is there like a movement where like, that's just lazy shock jock stuff? Or like, are there people that kind of...
Oh, sure. There are elitists in any art form, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
If I was like a painter and you brought me modern art, I'd be like, that's Neapolitan ice cream. That's garbage.
Right.
Right. Same thing for writing. People are going to look at, something like, some of these Bizarro works and they're going to poo them and say, you're just being gross. You're just being shocking to be shocking. And some of it is. Like, don't get me wrong. There's always those people that don't understand the message and the formula behind the genre, and they just go for the shock value, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be the guy that makes Human Centipede, and you're just like, what are you doing? You're just like, you just sewed mouths to butts, and you think that's great. And then there's going to be people that actually have a message to say with their art, even if it is gross, even if it is shocking.
Yeah.
So there's a certain contingent that'll look down upon Bizarro, but no one that writes Bizarro cares.
Right.
Do
you think
anything, we write it because we're so tired of seeing the bland garbage other people write.
That's kind of, I think I could see that. I think that's probably a big driving force for someone who wants to like branch away from the so-called like mainstream or classic stuff. And also, do you think it's harder to be recognized as a good story in this genre because of this, maybe like a generalization?
Scott, stop on that title right there. John dies at the end. So let me just, it is hard. It's not impossible. So this is John Dies at the End. This is by David Wong. Pretty popular. You can see it has almost 80,000 ratings.
Mm-hmm.
That was turned into a movie. I think that was Anton Yelchin.
Yeah, this does sound familiar. Yeah.
So that's like the high point, right? That's people going, yo, that's the ceiling.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people down below where they're like, yo, I sold 50 copies of it. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
As with most writing things, that's the reality of it. Some things hit, you don't know why.
Yeah.
Some things blow up, you don't know why. Usually it's because they're pretty good,
mm-hmm.
or they're tapping into something of the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some. He keeps showing these titles.
Dude, Melik's got some strong titles. Sausagey Santa.
I mean, a title alone, you got to read it.
You got to.
I
knocked up Satan's daughter. Fuck yeah.
All right. Anything else that you're wondering about Don't read that.
I have to look away from the screen. It's just too good. Oh shit. Damn it. Yes, I did, but that kind of threw me off.
The title just destroyed your whole concentration.
It kind of did. I want to read there's 12 books now that I have to look at.
You got to read these. What I like about them is they're all pretty thin, dude. They're all 1 day reads. If you,
easy,
you really just sat down and had an hour or two. Most of them are, it's hard to be weird for a long time.
That's a good point.
You run out of a story will run out of energy or steam if you don't get to the point.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so you had one thing you were going to say, and then you got distracted by some of these magnificent Carlton Mellick III titles.
Yeah, I was on the track of you got the potential criticism of oh, that's just drab. They're just trying to be weird. But then I was like, oh yeah. And then you had the example of John Dies at the end where some of these are actually they make it out of that generalization.
Mm-hmm.
What's in your opinion, because this has got to be an extremely weird book. What's the most bizarre, weirdest Bizarro book that you've read? Anything that you yourself was like, oh, okay, wow, they really did something weird here, and I like it.
You're putting me on the spot. I can't really think of anything.
I know it's tough. Tough question.
I'm not really shocked by anything.
It's hard to weird you out, right?
Yeah, it's hard to weird me out.
When you're reading stuff like this, I'm
looking at the art and the craft of it. I'm looking at the skill of the writer.
Okay.
What are they doing? And do I enjoy it? I'm not going to be shocked or scared off. There's been some stuff where I'm like, oh, that was kind of gross. I didn't really get it. There's been a few that are like that, but I'm not not every story is right for every reader.
Yeah.
Some stories are more right for others.
That's what I was going to say. In a world filled with such evil shit. Sorry, I was listening. I don't want to forget.
Yeah.
Do you find it almost refreshing to read so-called bizarre stuff? Because in a way, it's like an escape, even though it's deemed kind of dark or evil or gritty or weird or gross. It's it's almost an escape from the reality of shitty stuff that happens in actual,
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think for me, I suppose I like a good escape, but for Bizarro, I don't see a lot of them as escape. Some of them definitely are. There's not a lot thematically, depth-wise going on in there. But for the ones I actually enjoy, they are saying something. If anything, it's refining the things that I think. It's thinking about the issues of today in an off-the-wall, wacky way and really honing in on, well, what the heck do I believe as compared to what this author believes? And
it's like caricatures.
It's a conversation.
Okay.
A Bizarro book that's really done well, that's talking about stuff, is a conversation. It's a reflection, a chance to kind of look at the world and what you believe versus what other people are believing.
Okay.
And there's been books I've read with that I totally disagree with, and that's fine. I'm sure people have read my stuff and have totally disagreed with it.
Idiots.
Fools. So yeah. All right. Well, we've talked enough about Bizarro. I think what I'm going to do is we got to pay some bills. We got to do an ad next, and then on the other side of that, I'm going to come back. I'm going to read a section from my Bizarro novella, The Taxidermied Man.
Beautiful.
So here comes a delicious ad.
Absolutely. With so many million sheep flushing toilets at the drop of a shat, you're probably wondering what time it is. Well, lift up that toilet seat cover and turn on the fan. Because I'm here to tell you the time is now. There's never been a stinkier, heavier, more painful load until now. Nothing washes the brain of the masses like the slithering, sharp ribbons that waft from a corporate turd. So set the cycle to heavy soil and set your sights on now. Now that's what I call shit. The Pooper Star shit collection of the year has arrived. Now you can hear all your favorite shits right here, right now. 17 essential splats from such shark toppers like Imagine Dragons, Alex the Terrible, Sabrina Carpenter, Lil Baby, Lil Xan, Lil Pump, Stinky Pump, Penis Pump, Septic Pump, all the littles and all the pumps, Young Thug, Old Tough Guy, Uzi Vert, Tiny Revolver Skateboard, Pete Davidson's Actually Average, Machine Gun Kelly, Megan the Donkey, and more. Now that's what I call shit. Call the plumber on the screen and make sure you tell him Plunge sent you. And you need this now.
All right, I'm going to read a chapter from my book, The Taxidermied Man. This is my Bizarro novella, not a full novel size, but I'm going to be reading chapter 4, which is entitled Time Travel and Roid Boys. The premise of this story is that a guy commits suicide, has himself stuffed, and then his stuffed body goes on many adventures. This is one of them. In the corner of the shittiest bar in Juarez, Mexico, Bud stood looking out over the crumbling space. After his lover's suicide, no one came to see him, and he had been turned into decor in the bar. Over the years, he had learned a fair amount of Spanish. Sometimes he wished he could speak just to see how well he would be understood. Time passed like a millipede crawling across a desert. The majority of his time he spent trying to imagine the faces of his two lovers. He spent even more time apologizing to them, though he had no way of knowing if they could hear him wherever they were. Before him, a ribald play repeated itself, the backdrop to his thoughts. The bar was a record with a scratch in it, only this time the repeated fragment lasted for 24 hours instead of a few seconds. People came in, whores paraded about, trying to convince the tourists to pick them, despite their haggard faces and the track marks on their arms. The man with the shining face supplied his patrons with drugs, beer, and tequila, and anything else their sick little minds could think of. The women came and went, as did the customers, but the man with the shiny face was always there. His hair thinned and his belly grew outward, straining his belt until he had to buy a brand new one. His fashion changed as well. He went from wearing fancy, stylish suits to more restrained button-up collared shirts. The fashion of the whores and customers changed as well. He didn't know how it was possible, but the whores' outfits became even more scandalous. The customers came into the club in t-shirts and shorts rather than respectable slacks. Sometimes he would even see a dirtball American come in wearing sweatpants, their bulging erections already pulsing as they walked through the door. The man with the shiny face didn't care. The women in his employ were older, strung out on drugs, and were mostly just pink meat for the man to peddle. With only a passing interest, Shiny Face would watch them smoke and shoot up before the doors opened. Sometimes when he was angry, which seemed to happen more frequently as time dragged on, he would punch them in the places that men didn't care about. At 3 p.m, the doors would open and tourists, horny and 3 sheets to the wind, would stumble in. They would sit in the corners and watch girls dance and parade around the room, drinking their fill until their courage and their flesh was up. Then the man with the shiny face would come over, throw an arm over their shoulder as if they were long-lost friends, and they would set about haggling over the price of the girl who had caught the tourist's eye. This would go on for hours. Loud music thumped in the small bordello, and over the years the music changed. No one ever said the names of the songs. He just noticed that over time, the trends became different. Not better or worse, just different. But when an old song would come on, something that happened with increasing rarity, he would be transported away to a different time and place, whisked away by his memories, and this is how he would pass his time. Sometime in the morning, everyone would drag their ass out of the bar, sore and hungover. An elderly man with a hangdog expression on his face would appear around 10 a.m. and do a half-assed job of cleaning. Sometimes he mopped. Sometimes he didn't. On more than a few occasions, the man would walk behind the bar and get drunk for a couple hours after he emptied all the ashtrays and garbage. Bud liked those times the best. As the man sat on his stool, alone in a bordello, he would drink his tiny shots of tequila and howl at the ceiling, singing in Spanish so poorly Bud couldn't help but love the sound of it. When the man finished his work, he would leave and Bud would be alone with his own memories for a few hours. These thoughts would invariably travel the same track as all of his thoughts. He had nothing new to think about. No one talked to him. No one engaged him in conversation, and loneliness gnawed at him like a dog with a bone. He longed for someone to leave him lying in the street so a garbage truck or semi would come along and flatten the shit out of his taxidermied body. He was quite sure that his spirit would be free then, released from his self-imposed tomb. But no one ever did this. Sometimes he would try and recall every moment of his life from the time of his first memory to the present, but that got old. Eventually his mind would wander, and he would lose his place in time. Time was funny like that, shifting underneath you like quicksand at any given opportunity. Fucking time. It was all he had. If he had a wallet and he pulled it out, a bunch of time would fall out and pool on the floor. When the athletes came in, he was busy cursing time for the millionth time. He could tell they were athletes because they wore the same jerseys. They were jerseys like none that Bud had ever seen, bright red and plastered in so many advertisements and logos he had no idea what the team's name was. He'd only been a passing sports fan, rooting for the local teams when they made it to the playoffs. But these guys, they were not like any athletes he had ever seen. Huge and bursting with muscles, they strutted into the bar like they owned the place. They had the type of bodies that let you know they were going to erupt into violence at some point in the evening simply for the fact that they were bigger than everyone else. Their forearms bulged with veins and their chests were large and built like iron-bound barrels. The athletes crowed and hooted at everything, their voices rising louder and louder as if even talking was a competition among them. Despite their bluster, nothing they said was particularly interesting. Bud had wanted to be an athlete when he was younger, had even showed himself to be somewhat talented in the realm of baseball, but he didn't have the killer instinct. Oh, he liked hitting the ball and striking people out, but he didn't care if he won or lost. He was too easygoing, and his coach told him as much. You got to develop that killer instinct, Bud. Go for the throat. If you don't do it, you can be damn sure that someone else will be going for yours. Bud had simply shrugged his shoulders. Killer instinct. He either had it or he didn't. Years later, his coach would be run out of town. Rumor said he had gone for the throat at some point with another one of his wards. All coaches were pieces of shit in one way or another. Many gods on a grass field. The people that survived the crucible of organized sports were frequently the dumbest, the most willing to sacrifice their identities for the glory of on-field greatness. Bud hadn't been one of those, and he was done with organized sports by middle school. These people, though, these hulking giant monsters, had dedicated their lives to sports. It was all they knew, besides drinking and whoring. Quite a few wedding rings glittered on their thick fingers, but these meant nothing as the ones with rings seemed the most eager to get into bed with the shiny-faced man's horrors. As the night wore on, the athletes crowed louder, their obnoxiousness rising to epic heights. They called each other bruh, and not a single whore could walk through the bar without one of them slapping them on the ass. They shouted obscenities and challenged each other to feats of strength like animals in a nature documentary, trying to prove their prowess for the women. They were brainless animals. At one point in the night, the shiny-faced man produced a silver briefcase with locks like none that Bud had ever seen. Placed a thumb on a black box and the latches clicked open. Inside, he could see the gleam of tiny glass vials. With a palsied brown hand, he produced one of the vials and gave a speech to the athletes that was lost among the thumping music and the fake moans of orgasmic pleasure from the back rooms. Then the athletes did the oddest of things. They lined up and pulled their pants down, and the shiny-faced man injected him in their ass. The athletes laughed and shook their fists in the air before giving each other high fives. They continued like this for hours, snorting cocaine off the dirty bar, disappearing into the back rooms, and drinking to the point that they all became rather violent. Fistfights broke out, and the horrors looked around them with dinner plate eyes. Even the shiny-faced man's eyes were wide and fearful. One of the athletes, a square, blocky man, stalked in the direction of Bud. His acne-filled face disappeared, and then suddenly, Bud was flying. No, he was being carried. The man set him in the middle of the room, and the athletes screamed and hooted, beating their chests like gorillas. Get one of them whores on this dick, the man yelled, bossing around the shiny-faced man. The owner of the bar, not used to being spoken to in such a fashion, balked. Not because he wouldn't have his whores do such a thing, but because he didn't like to be bossed around. He was in charge in this place, not the athletes. In Spanish, he spoke to one of the whores and called the athlete a fucking retard with balls like grapes. The whore laughed at this, and the athlete flew into a rage. With veins pulsing in his hot dog-colored temples, the beefy man picked up the shiny-faced man as if he were but an oversized teddy bear, and then threw the old man through the air. For a moment, he looked like a Warriorian Superman, sailing across the bar, his arms out before him as his graying black hair trailed behind him. Then he crashed into Bud, and Bud felt pain for the first time in a long time. Sure, he still felt the dull, ever-present pain of being dead, but he had come to grips with that a long time ago. This pain was more intense, more excruciating, something he couldn't ignore. Bud's world swam, and he realized he was lying on his back, looking up at the dusty ceiling. The pain came from the middle of his prison, and with his consciousness, he probed the pain, trying to determine what exactly had happened. My penis! My penis is gone! Bud panicked. He had lost his manhood. He would never love again. He watched as the shiny-faced man pushed off his chest, an object in his hand. That's my dick! The owner of the bordello disappeared from sight. Bud yearned to see, yearned to know what was going on in the rest of the bar. What's that man doing with my dick? Despite the pain, this was the most excitement he had experienced in years, and he couldn't see a damn thing. Then Bud became aware of something extraordinary. For a lack of a better word, he felt a draft where his piece had been. His mind bubbled, rising and falling like a ball of wax inside a lava lamp. Bundling himself into as tight a ball as possible, he was somehow able to disappear in the shell of his body. He journeyed through the blackness of his chest, past the wooden framework, past the exposed grid of plastered innards, and toward a small pool of light. Through the hole in his groin, he was able to push his way into the outside world. I'm free! But he wasn't. With his mind outside of his body, he tried to float up and away, but something held him back. Something anchored him to his body. The disappointment was fleeting, however, as he realized that he could now change his perspective on the world. He could now look around. While he would rather be untethered from his body altogether, he was still elated to be able to watch the mayhem in the bar as it unfolded. All around the bordello, violence erupted. The shiny-faced man swung Bud's cock like a baseball bat, bludgeoning the athletes in the head until it snapped in two. The athletes fought amongst themselves, too plastered to distinguish between friend or foe. The horse fell into two categories of behavior. They either huddled in the corners to avoid being injured, or they clonked the athletes in the head with beer bottles. With each swing, they took out their rage about their position in life on the very people that kept them down. Bud rooted for them, silently applauding as the old horrors moved about the cantina, taking shots when they could. The giant men threw each other through the air and cracked each other in the teeth with their ham-hock fists. Then the giant white man that had started it all held out a hand to the shiny-faced man, bidding him to stop his assault. The athlete doubled over, his red face straining as he alternately laughed and choked. Vomit erupted from his mouth, and Bud had never seen such a vile stream, not even from his cousin Miles, who had used to drink radiator fluid to get high when they were teenagers. All around the bar, pockets of violence faltered, some in mid-swing, as the athlete spewed his entire evening's excess upon the floor. Then everyone laughed as if it were the greatest joke in the history of man. The athletes, some bleeding from wounds, some concussed by beer bottles, clapped each other on the shoulder, lifted each other in the air, lifted each other in great back-breaking bear hugs, and patted each other on the back. The horrors moved cockroach silent, slinking to positions of safety, hoping that their assaults would be forgotten and forgiven. Even the shiny-faced man stopped and had himself a good laugh. He held the remains of Bud's dick in his hand, showing it to the athletes, pointing and laughing. Just like that, everything seemed all right. Reality bent and twisted for a moment, snapped back into normality, and the glory of that excess faded among the patrons. The night was over and everyone wound down, some with a drink, some with the on-the-house blowjobs. But as the athletes filed out the door, there was one last piece of business, one last thing that would change Bud's death forever. The shiny-faced man, with his accent thick and drunken, asked, "But what about this, senor?" The athlete looked at Bud then, and he laughed. "What about it? It's worthless to me now. No one wants to see a dickless man in a bordello. It's bad luck." The athlete turned toward Bud and said, "I'll take it off your hands. How much do you want for it?" "I paid a pretty penny for it, senor. I could see letting it go for less than 500. 200. 3. 250. "Sold," the shiny-faced man said, and Bud never saw him again. His world turned sideways as a giant athlete tucked him under a sweat-soaked armpit and carried him out into the cool night of the godforsaken Mexican border town. Later that night, the Portland punk rockers, a professional gamer team, took Bud to a tattoo parlor. Through the hole in his crotch, Bud marveled at the process, though he wasn't a huge fan of athletes scribbling their names on his dickless body. The tattoo artist, a skinny Mexican woman with delicate hands, purple hair, and metal in her face, pulled out a small laser. On a small keyboard, she clicked a bunch of buttons, and then, in a flowery scrawl, she emblazoned the athlete's name on his body. Bud was enraptured by the blue light of the laser, enthralled with how, wherever the laser touched him, a dark stain would appear. It didn't hurt, which was good, because year after year, he would undergo the same process, even though he didn't know it then. And that's the end of that one. The Taxidermied Band.
That's rad.
Buy it. We got a special guest today. Not too often does an author get to sit around and talk with a character from his own mind, but we got that going on. Please welcome the comedian to the show. All right. Okay, just gonna throw stuff down there. Okay, got it.
What are they?
Make sure not throw it on the books. Those are
Yeah, I
items.
didn't want to mess up those precious books of yours, right?
I guess not. All right, so
I know.
I see you got a little. Did you bring a friend with you?
What?
You're wearing a doll head, sir.
Can we get on with the thing?
I mean, hey, I thought you were going to be sort of entertaining. You're called the comedian, correct?
What's in it for me? Come on, I know there's something.
I have at least 4 or 5 fans that are going to get a kick out of this.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Well, I'm sorry. Are they here or?
They're all named Vienna.
Well, forgive me. It's been a long day on the road, and
You get those afterwards if you're like a good interview.
Oh, well, well, why didn't you say something in the first place? Hello, everyone.
It's
Glad to be here.
Quite a personality shift. So for those who aren't familiar with you, why don't you tell them what you do?
Sure. Yeah. I am somewhat of a traveler. I like to enchant people with my stories of the road. I have been known to be somewhat of a skilled tracker, if you will. Shut up, Odd. And what more would you like me to say? I'm here to serve you for the evening.
Okay.
And it's always nice to meet new friends and make connections with the audience, so to speak.
Now, before we go any further, I just want to point out that did you just tell that doll head to shut up?
Doll head. Oh no. Well, just think of this as one of my anchors. It's something that centers me before a performance, if you will.
Okay. Actors are weird. I mean, comedians are weird.
Sure. Yeah, it's weird.
Can you tell me some of your comedic influence? Hey, that's
Just
for after the show, fella.
Reading. Yeah, I just wanted
you
to
just keep
see
your
if it
hand
was
where
real.
it's at. I mean, you brought your weapons in here. You threw them on the thing. You got your doll head.
Those are props. Those, who doesn't have. Anyways, it's your show, my friend.
Yeah. So let's get to it. You're being kind of difficult. I thought for a figment of my imagination, I thought you would be much more agreeable.
Oh, no. I thought this was just one of our. I can be agreeable.
Okay.
Here's agreeable. Here we are.
Okay, we're agreeable.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you call yourself the comedian, and what do you do? Like, are you like Pauly Shore or something? Are you like really hilarious like that, or what's going on?
Pauly Shore. No, that's good. Good rep. I like it. I like the illusion. I like the.
Do you ever wheeze the juice?
reference. No, Pauly Shore. Yeah, one of my favorites. I just tell tales of my travels around this interesting world that we have all found ourselves in. And, I make people laugh, and that's how I earn my way, among other things.
What has been your best haul in the last, let's say, year or so? You travel around, go to these towns, you go to your show. What are we talking? What are you earning? Are you like a millionaire? What are you doing?
Well, terms like these are
relative. Are you
relative.
getting that Mulvaney money?
Here's the thing. Terms like these are relative. I was in Turnip the other day, and I pulled a balloon. I pulled a screw. I pulled. It wasn't in a can, but I did actually have an acquaintance with a couple of Vienna sausages. The adoration of the fans was enough for me. It supports my other job.
You have another job. What is your other job?
Sure, yeah. Well, people, you could call them contracts. Have me. Like I said, I track. I'm very good on the road, and I track people. I find people. I'm very good at navigating through this waste of a world. And I find people.
What do you do when you find them?
Oh, nothing outside the law of man, if you will.
So what do you do?
I thought you wanted agreeable, and that's what I'm giving you, and I feel like we should just keep it at that.
Okay, so you're telling me to move on.
I'm telling you that it's your show, my friend.
Okay. All right. So who are your comedic influences? If I was gonna ask you, like, you scoffed at Pauly Shore, who wheezes the juice. You scoffed at Mulvaney, who has hosted Saturday Night Live like 1,000 times. Uh, who are you into, comedy wise? Who floats your comedy boat?
You know, a lot of names escape me. I feel that I am my own man. I feel that none of these people before me, though I guess it's not their fault that they didn't have these experiences, but uh, my comedy is based on kind of our current world and my experiences and what I do. So to say, for me to bring up any influences that are so-called well known, I don't really know how to answer that.
Wow. Okay. Um, let's see. I feel like you maybe the doll said something. Did the doll does the doll speak to you?
Could we just not talk about the
Okay. Oh,
doll?
you want to talk about the doll? Okay. Um, let's see. What? Let's. All right. Let's say I wanted to get into wasteland comedianing. Right. I'm pretty funny, right?
Yes.
Yes. How would one go about becoming a wasteland comedian?
Well, I mean, first, tragedy is always the beginning of anything worth a damn. So I wouldn't hope that on anyone. However, how do you expect to really, influence and connect with your crowd if you haven't been through anything? You know what I'm saying? So, well, I don't know. Get yourself some fingerless gloves and some goggles and walk around and observe and see if you can come up with anything funny.
Funny. Okay. All right. So your basic advice is go for a walk in the wasteland and observe things.
If you can handle it, yes.
It's tough wasteland out there. What are some things you've seen in your travels where you're just like, yo, that's crazy? What's
Well, I don't know if you've ever been to the wasteland, but you ever seen someone with the shakes? You know what I mean? You haven't had any human meat in a while, and they just can't seem to function right. There's just something about the rhythm of the twitching and the rhythm and the clicking and the sound, and these raiders, they think they could take whatever they want, which I understand because I've had to take what I want from time to time. I mean, I'm a humble comedian, you know. I only track who I need to track, so it's not like I'm just out there doing this for fun or anything. But yeah. I've seen sex vampires. I've seen grass that wiggles but not with the wind. I've seen Evercrack, and I'm not talking about plumbers, pal. I've seen Evercrack.
like that band from Portland? What was his name? Art Alexakis. He's all father of mine.
Don't
You know
even
that
get
guy?
me started. I do. I
Okay.
wish I didn't. No, Evercrack. I mean, this is basically a big fissure. You fall into this and you're done, pal. It's not just a bad dream. It's a bad dream coming to reality, man. Also, shriekers, tweakers of the worst kind, streakers.
Shriekers, tweakers, and streakers.
Yeah. Get into that. And it's really, the wasteland is just crazy in itself, my friend. You've seen the things that I've seen. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I lost myself for a second there.
Hey, you kind of faded away. All right, let's say I'm a budding comedian, and I've got the skills to make the kills. Yeah, you like that one? I got you, comedian. I got you. And
Audrey.
who's telling jokes?
Audrey liked it.
Oh, okay. Um, who's Audrey again?
My she's nobody. Continue.
Okay. So I'm a comedian. I'm the hottest thing around. I'm basically like the new Kevin Hart, right? So I'm just terribly funny, and I need to hit the road. What are some?
Let me stop you right there.
Oh, okay.
I lost you for just a second.
Okay.
I liked everything you were doing.
Okay.
But you mentioned Kevin Hart. Why?
Because he was a hilarious comedian before the apocalypse and stuff. So
Oh, okay.
he was
I
in
see.
that Will Ferrell movie where he pretended to be a convict, but he wasn't. And I think that's out when I actually watch it. But I heard it was
Right.
hilarious.
Right. Okay. So you're asking as if you were like Kevin Hart, if your comedy was like Kevin Hart
And I was just so funny.
and you were just so funny, how would you get started on the road to being a
A
wasteland
vagabond.
comedian?
I mean, a performer like yourself.
Well, let me curtail it towards what you're looking for.
Okay. Sounds good.
So me, I go up there and maybe I talk about going into a fortress and maybe killing a few raiders and maybe just for the sake of performance, not for my own pleasure, just for you, I do this for everybody. What if I went in there and just tortured somebody and maybe cut a permanent smile on their face, right? And then I tell you about that. A Kevin Hart fan probably wouldn't relate or understand that. So I'm saying to you, maybe you can go into one of these sex demon clubs and talk about a guy that's too old for being in the club or something like that. And then you could bring that onto the stage and see how that works for you. How about that?
Okay, that's pretty good advice. I like that.
Yeah.
Are there any tips that you have for surviving the wasteland? I mean, it seems like the type of place where you don't want to make the mistake and have to learn from your mistake because that could be deadly, fatal, right? So, what are some advice you have for our budding comedians who are going to start wandering the wastes for a screw or a balloon?
It's a good question. I like this one. One of the main things is don't freak out. Because one of the keys to longevity is telling yourself that you're okay. If you're oblivious to whatever thing you got going on, that kind of person lives a long time. Okay? That's helped me many times. And look at me. I'm all right. Also, this sounds pretty cliche, but you always got to be just aware. You've got to open your fucking eyes, right? A lot of these morons walk around and they get comfortable and they start feeling good and they just happy-go-lucky and boom, before you know it, you've got squiggly grass, coming up from the ground. You've got shriekers coming down and biting your throat out. You might fall in an evercrack. You got to open your eyes. You don't want to get swallowed up by a earthquake or an immovable tumbleweed or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard about those.
So, having a cavalier attitude about whatever injury you got, you got to have good footwear. You got to find whatever tools. You can't care about anybody. Finish. And what was I saying? You got to open your fucking eyes.
Okay.
And you'll be fine.
That's pretty good advice. I know I write books. Have you ever thought about writing your own book to kind of give people this advice?
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I have written some songs. I like to perform other types of art on stage every once in a while. Writing my own book. Gosh, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? I know, Audrey, I'm being polite.
So you play songs too?
I do.
What are some of your go-tos here?
Oh,
I mean, you don't seem like a very musical person, to be honest. But I don't know how that's funny. But
oh, that wasn't you. It was Audrey.
Oh.
She's a funny one.
Okay, the doll heads got jokes. Okay, what are some of your standards there? that you
Oh,
like to
well, you
play?
haven't heard Rotten Robin?
No,
You haven't heard Boils?
no.
Come on. Well, you're missing out on a real treat.
Okay, cool. Well, what's the future? Oh, you see something there?
No.
What do you think the future holds for you? Where are you off to next? Are you gonna go do a week at I don't know, Raider Town or something?
I'm thinking I might make my way back to Ike. There's some real interesting characters in Ike.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a good workout program there. A lot of rafters, a lot of climbing, a lot of agility training. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's another thing I forgot to say earlier. Everything you do, you got to stay limber. You got to stay fit. You got to stay mobile, right? You got to have the edge. And having a big fucking sword doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt.
Okay. You seem like the type of dude who like really likes your weapons.
I love my weapons.
You love your do you sleep with them? Do you sleep with your weapons?
I don't sleep with my weapons. I sleep with my weapons, if you know what I mean.
I feel like I was saying the right thing the first time, and then you said the wrong thing the second time.
You're the boss.
Okay. Tell me about your weapons. What do you got? You got threw some stuff up here. Are these stereotypical wasteland gear? Should I have a set of these? Can I trade you these sausages for those?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, you can trade me those sausages for whatever you want. The only thing I'm keeping is the last laugh.
The last laugh. What's that?
That's my little shuriken that I like to keep around.
Okay.
Yeah. It's tipped with a very special kind of venom. It's very fast. It's quiet. I've grown pretty accurate with it. And then I've got Rib Tickler over there. She's one of a kind. And what else did I bring with me today? Oh, that's something on my way here I took off of some poor raider. I know.
Okay. Well, you're starting to creep me out a little bit here. Yeah. So, anything you want to say to my 4 or 5 fans before you get out of here?
So a guy's walking home with a duck under his arm. He's stumbling drunk. He makes it up to his porch. His wife answers. She says, nothing. And he says, you see what I mean? And she says, are you talking to that duck? And he goes, no. You get it?
Not really. But I'm gonna go ahead and let you have these.
Wait a minute. You're not fucking with me?
I'm not. Where I come from, these are like they're not that expensive. So, thanks for stopping by. That was comedian everyone. Not terrifying at all. Doesn't seem like he's on the edge of some sort of emotional break or anything. He's talking to a dog.
Hey, thanks a lot, pal. See you later.
Yeah, good luck in Ike with the things, and take your ninja star with the poison on it.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, hey, all right. Anyways, we got to get going. Like to thank the comedian for stopping by. Like to thank Nick Kale for being around later. Hopefully, have a great evening.
Follow me to the sunny streets, open your ears and brains. A recipe of fresh and bloody trees, right here's where you jump the trains. The clock stops here, so grab a beer, throw your sensibilities away. We ain't walking, we're talking to the north, east, west, and south. This ribbon cast is fast like the dead we will last. We're running on rotten mouths. We're talking to the north, east, west, and south.